Hello and welcome to an Affinity Revolution tutorial. My name is Ezra Anderson, and today we're going to create a cute cactus character. To begin our cactus design, the first thing we'll do is make its pot. We'll make the cactus's pot by using the trapezoid tool. You can find this tool by clicking and holding on the triangle tool and then selecting Trapezoid tool. Then just click and drag to make a trapezoid. We'll need to flip our trapezoid vertically, which we can do up at the top by pressing on this button here. I'm going to come to the color panel and remove the stroke of this trapezoid by selecting the stroke circle and then pressing on the no fill icon. Then I'll select its fill color and make it a bluish gray. We'll make the top of our pot by using the rounded rectangle tool. With this tool, just click and drag to make a rounded rectangle, and then use the orange circle to increase its roundness. By hovering on the edge of the shape, we can reposition it so it's centered over our trapezoid. Next, we're going to give a shadow to our pot by using the triangle tool. We can find the triangle tool by clicking and holding on the trapezoid tool and then selecting Triangle tool. Then just click and drag to make a triangle, and use the orange handle at the top to bring our triangle all the way to the left. Then we'll flip our triangle vertically. I'm going to make the triangle longer and skinnier, and then change it to a darker color. Finally, I'll reposition the triangle, and then make it a child layer of the trapezoid by dragging it down into the right of the trapezoid layer. This makes it so the triangle is only visible where the trapezoid is. I'm going to make the triangle a little bit longer and skinnier. Now I'll press V for the Move tool, and I'll click and drag to make a selection of all of these shapes. I'll place them in a group by pressing Command or Control G. Then I'll resize and reposition my pot. Next, we'll make the cactus's body. We'll do this by using the ellipse tool. Just click and drag to make a long oval. I'll change the oval to a green color. Then I'll place the oval on the layer beneath our pot group. I'm also going to make it a little bit taller. Next, we're going to add some shading to our cactus's body. To do this, we'll duplicate its body twice by pressing Command or Control J 2 times. We'll now move this top duplicate layer up and to the right by holding down Shift and using the arrow keys on your keyboard. While holding down Shift, I'll click on the up arrow key 3 times, and then while holding down Shift, I'll click on the right arrow key 3 times. Then while holding down Shift, I'll click on our second duplicate layer so we have the third and second duplicate layers both selected. Now we'll use the subtract Boolean operation. We've now created a crescent shape which we can use for the shadow of our cactus's body. All we need to do is make the color a little bit darker. If the shadow is too strong, you can always lower its opacity. I'll lower my shadow's opacity to 70% by pressing 7 on the keyboard. Alternatively, you can always change the opacity inside the Layers panel. We're going to repeat this process to make a highlight for the cactus's body. First, I'll select the main cactus body, and then duplicate it 2 times. The only difference is now we'll move the top layer down and to the left. So while holding down Shift, I'll click on the down arrow key 3 times, and then while holding down Shift, I'll click on the left arrow key 3 times. Then while holding down Shift, I'll select the second duplicate layer, and then use the subtract Boolean operation. I'll make this crescent a little bit lighter for our highlight. Now that we have some highlights on our cactus's body, we're also going to give it some texture. To do this, we'll come to the pixel persona at the top left. Inside the pixel persona, we're going to use the paintbrush tool. I'm going to select a dark green color for my paintbrush. Then we're going to change the brush we'll be using. To do this, we'll come to the Brushes panel, and then change the category from Assorted to Painting. I'll select the fourth brush in this category. Now we're going to paint some texture onto our cactus's body. But first, we'll need to make our paintbrush a little bit bigger. We can do this by using the right bracket key underneath the equal sign on the keyboard. Then just click once to lay down some paint, and then come down a little ways, and while holding down Shift, click again. By holding down Shift, we've made a perfectly straight line. I'm going to duplicate this line by pressing Command or Control J, and then press V for the Move tool. Now I can move the second paint stroke a little bit to the right. Then I'll press Command or Control J again, and move our third duplicate a little bit to the right as well. In the Layers panel, I'm going to select all of these layers, and then group them by pressing Command or Control G. I'll position them on top of the cactus's body, and I'll rotate the group slightly by using the rotation handle above the group. We only want these paintbrush strokes to be seen where our cactus's body is visible, so I'm going to make it a child layer of the cactus's body by dragging the group down and to the right. Obviously, this is much too strong, so I'm going to lower the opacity to 30% by pressing 3 on the keyboard. I think that's still a little too strong, so I'll lower it to 20%. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see that these paintbrush strokes are only visible where the original cactus's body was. They are not visible where the highlight or shadow crescents are. To fix this, we're going to duplicate our paintbrush group 2 times. Then we'll make these 2 duplicate groups child layers of the 2 crescents that we made earlier. Now the main cactus's body, the highlight, and the shadow each have this texture applied to them. I'll press Command or Control 0 to see the entire document again. Inside the Layers panel, I'll select the shadow group, and then while holding down Shift, I'll click on the main cactus's body. Then I'll group them together. Now we'll come back to the Draw persona. We're next going to work on the cactus's face. We'll start off by making an oval using the Ellipse tool. I'm going to remove the stroke from this oval, and then give it a dark blue fill. I'll zoom into the oval by double-clicking on its layer icon. Then we'll convert it to curves up in the contextual toolbar. We're going to move the node at the bottom of the oval. If we just click and drag, we can move this node wherever we want. But if we hold down Shift while clicking and dragging, then we can constrain our node's movement to straight lines. While holding down Shift, I'm going to bring this node up. While holding down Shift, I'll also bring the top node up. Now I'll zoom out to see my entire document again. I'll press V for the Move tool, and place this shape in the center of our cactus's body. Then we'll duplicate it, and move the duplicate group 100 pixels to the right by coming to the Transform panel and typing in +100 into the x-axis. Then we'll select the original shape and move it 100 pixels to the left by typing in -100. Now both of these shapes are an equal distance from the center of the cactus's body. Next, we'll make the cactus's mouth. To do this, we'll use the Segment tool, which we can find by clicking and holding on the Triangle tool, and then selecting Segment tool. Then just click and drag to make a segment. We'll flip this shape vertically up at the top. Then we'll convert it to curves in the contextual toolbar. I'll zoom into the shape by double-clicking on its icon in the Layers panel. After converting a shape to curves, we can now use the Corner tool. With the Corner tool, I'm going to select both of the top nodes. Then I'll click and drag them in to round these corners. I'll zoom out once again, and then press V for the Move tool. Now I'll resize and reposition the mouth. We're going to make a circle for a tongue in our mouth, So let's get the ellipse tool and click and drag to make a circle. Then we'll give it a red color and press V for the move tool and reposition the tongue. Then we'll make it a child layer of the segment that we made before. Then I'm going to select all of the layers that make up the face and place them inside of a group. I'm going to bring the entire group down a little bit. Next, we'll make a flower at the top of our cactus. To do this, we'll get the ellipse tool, and while holding down Shift, we'll click and drag to make a perfect circle. Then we'll duplicate the circle 2 times. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can better see what I'm doing, and then press V for the move tool. I'm going to bring this circle over to the right, and then place the other circle in the center of these two. I'll make the middle one a little bit taller. Then I'll select all of these circles and place them inside of a group. Then we'll zoom back out and place this flower at the top of our cactus. We'll send this group to the back by pressing on the Send to Back button. Then we'll duplicate the entire group and make it a little bit bigger. I'll make this second group a light pink. Then I'll send this new group to the back. Then we just need to center it over the cactus's body. I think I'm going to make this pink color a little bit more red. Then I'm going to select both of these groups that make up the flower and put them inside of another group. You can see that we're using a lot of groups to keep our layers panel organized. Finally, we're going to make the spikes for our cactus's body. Before we do this, I'm going to zoom in a little ways. Then I'm going to select the rounded rectangle tool and click and drag to make a skinny rounded rectangle. I'm going to use the orange circle to make this rounded rectangle even more round. We'll start by placing spikes along the highlighted edge of our cactus's body. We want to make sure our rounded rectangle is the same color as this highlight. To do this, I'm going to click and drag on the color picker tool to select the highlight color. Then I'll load it to the rounded rectangle by pressing on this icon. Now I'll press V for the move tool and make my rounded rectangle a little bit smaller. Then I'll rotate it and position it on the cactus's body. I'm going to place this rounded rectangle at the bottom of our layers by pressing Send to Back. While holding down Alt or Option, you can click and drag on this rounded rectangle to duplicate it. Then we can rotate this duplicate spike. While holding down Alt or Option, I'll click and drag to duplicate it again, and then rotate this spike a little bit as well. I'll continue this process to make a few more spikes. I'll zoom out so we can see the entire document again. I'm going to duplicate one of these spikes and place it on the other side of our cactus. Then I'll zoom in. This spike is fine because it still lines up with the highlighted edge of the cactus. However, when we duplicate the spike again, it's no longer matching because it's next to the shadow side of our cactus's body. To fix this, I'm going to sample the shadow color. Then I'll click on our spike and give it this new color. Once it has the right color, we can continue the same process to add spikes to this side of the cactus. Finally, I'm going to select all of these rounded rectangles and place them inside of a group. Then I'll select all of these groups and place them inside of another group. Then with the Move tool, we can resize and position the entire cactus's body. And there you have it! You now know how to design a cute cactus in Affinity Designer.